In Genesis 8, verse 21, the intent of man's heart is evil from his youth. He doesn't have to be taught to be evil. He came out of his mother's womb speaking lies, the psalmist says. In Ecclesiastes 9 in verse 3, and I'm reading from the Old Testament just to show that this has been the case against humanity from the very beginning. The hearts of the sons of men are full of evil, and insanity is in their hearts. You want to know why? Because sin will make you stupid. Sin will make you make the worst choices a person could possibly make. It is moral insanity to sin against God. In Jeremiah 17, verse 9, the heart is more deceitful than all else and is desperately sick. Who can understand it? It's a rhetorical question, the answer of which is no one can even understand the depths of depravity and the evil that is lurking in the human hearts down deep on the inside. It's far worse than what any one of us could even begin to comprehend. And in Isaiah 1 and verse 5 and 6, the whole head is sick. The whole heart is faint. From the sole of the feet, even to the head, there is nothing sound in it. And again, it's the same imagery that Paul is using in Romans 3, from the feet to the head, and every body part representing a different aspect of the human nature and the human soul. Isaiah says, or God says through Isaiah, there is nothing sound in it. It would be like taking a glass of water and you have a thimble of cyanide and you pour it into the glass of water. That cyanide now permeates the whole glass of water, such that there is death now in every sip of the water. And Adam's sin has been poured out into the human race like the poison of cyanide, and it has affected every aspect of human nature, of every person, in every generation, on every continent born into this world. So you want to know what's wrong with Washington? It's total depravity. You want to know what's wrong with Hollywood? It's total depravity. You want to know what's wrong with the abortion mills and with transgender operations, with homosexuality and lesbianism and child abuse? You want to know what the problem is? The problem is the human heart. Do you want to know what is driving pornography and racism and anarchy in the streets, and one country invading another country and slaughtering and killing innocent lives? There is only one answer, and it is total depravity. Man sins because man is a sinner, and because he has a sin nature. So this is the case that Paul has presented in Romans chapter 3. And what I love about the Bible is a straight talking book. It tells it like it is. And this is the realistic estimate of the human race. So we're ready for the verdict in the courtroom of heaven. In verse 19 and 20, we have the verdict. Paul has presented God's case, and now the gavel is ready to come down. And in verse 19 we read, now we know, and there's a note of certainty about this. Now we know with certainty that whatever the law says, it speaks to those who are under the law. And what the law says is three things. It's the holiness of God that is revealed in the law. It is the sinfulness of man that is exposed by the law. And it is the curse of sin, which is death. And so we know that whatever the law says, it speaks to those who are under the law. Well, that is every human being. Whether they have heard the law or have not heard the law, That law was written upon their heart, as Paul argued in Romans chapter 2. And so here's the result: so that every mouth may be closed. This is such an overwhelming, slam dunk case that no sinner standing in the final judgment will even bother to offer an excuse by opening his mouth. There is no self-vindication that could be possibly offered against this airtight case of condemnation. There can be no self-justification, no offering of excuses to God. Every mouth may be closed because the case is so overwhelming. And at the end of verse 19, and all the world may become accountable to God, must answer to God, must stand in the judgment before God, must hear the verdict that will come from God. And so verse 20, because by the works of the law, whatever man's attempts at self-righteousness, whether it be through his own efforts, whether it be through a false religion, whether it would be through human philosophy, whether it would be through secular humanism, whether it would be through whatever attempt to meet a standard that they perceive that God would have, he says, by the works of the law, no flesh will be justified. No person anywhere on planet Earth will be made right before God. And he adds, in his sight, meaning all that matters is what's in God's sight, not what is in man's sight. He says, for through the law comes the knowledge of sin. And so the law makes sin known, but the law cannot save.